Hi there. Welcome to the podcast. So, this is our initial offering, and we hope you find it entertaining and interesting and you'll learn something. So, we're just going to start out and introduce ourselves. I'm Peg Raciti. I am with the Williamson County Republican Party. I work as the assistant secretary. I do some of the media and marketing for the county party. And let me ask Leigh Ann, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, what you do?
Yeah, well, my name is Leigh Ann Cates, and I am the current secretary for the Williamson County Republican Party, and I'm a realtor by trade, by career, and I'm married with 2 adult children that continue to vote Republican, which I'm very, very proud of. In this day and age, I have one that's about to graduate from college, and she's coming out of conservative, so I feel like I've accomplished a great thing there.
And Elliott, hi.
Hey, happy to be here. I'm Elliott Franklin, and I serve as the second vice chair for the Williamson County Republican Party. I've lived in Williamson County since 2018, moved here from Texas with my family, my wife and 6 kids. By trade, I'm an ethical hacker, so try to keep the bad guys out of the computers. And my parents were both school teachers and always taught me to try to leave every place a little better than you found it. And so that's what I'm doing by volunteering and serving.
Excellent. I love the service aspect of it. And I don't think people realize that our positions are completely voluntary. And some people say, why would you volunteer for that? And I was thinking about my history with the Republican Party, and because we came from Massachusetts, and I remember after Trump was elected, there were a few families that kind of like whispered off on the side to like, hey, I'm a Trump supporter. There was like always these tells, and you couldn't speak of such things. And then there was this barbecue that one of them held, and it was the most joyous thing. We were like singing patriotic songs, and we had little buttons, like these clandestine buttons, and it was a secret club, and we only met once or twice, and it was amazing because it was finally that you found like-minded people. So have you ever had that experience, or is that something when you live in a red state you don't exactly experience?
Say, having been a resident of Middle Tennessee for 30, almost 40 years now, that I've watched Tennessee as a state change. I actually voted for a Democratic governor many, many years ago, Phil Bredesen. He was a great governor. He was very moderate. I was also very ill-informed about all things politics. I was one of those that voted because that was the name that I saw on the signs and the name that I knew that I'd heard of. But I actually went to his inaugural ball, one of his inaugural balls when he won his governor's position. But, I've been in Nashville, Middle Tennessee, and then Williamson County since 1999, and have seen things change. The things that make Williamson County beautiful I believe, are in danger of being lost if we don't take inventory of some things that are going on and really have some accountability and transparency in our local government, just like President Trump is doing on the national level. And the international level, I feel like that we're seeing, or we're gonna see a shift in Williamson County if we don't get involved. So that's actually part of what got me involved when Trump got cheated out of his 2020 election. We can all look back on it now and recognize that was probably a good thing, because a lot of people woke up and a lot of people saw the problems, and we now see how bad it could really be.
And a lot of people moved.
A lot of people moved.
Yes, a lot of newcomers are here because of that election loss. So, Elliott, you grew up in a total red state, which I would consider a red state. How did that formulate, like, what's your history? How did that formulate your Republican values?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll add on to what Leigh Ann said. So since I was a computer nerd my whole life, I'll say my first real experience in politics was serving on George W. Bush's campaign back when I was in college. And he was governor of Texas, and then, of course, working for president. And I worked on, I was one of his website designers back then, and it was a volunteer gig. The company I worked at was a 4-day-a-week company at the time, so we had Fridays off. So on Fridays, I would drive to Austin and work in his campaign office, and thinking, again, we went to his inaugural ball, all that fun stuff, thinking this was the greatest thing ever. And I think it's a matter of, like Leigh Ann said, a lot of stuff has changed in our view of what does a conservative mean. The term's been hijacked, grassroots, the term's been hijacked. So I think some of the things we're going to cover on some of these podcasts is what does that mean now, and what should that mean? And we want to take some of those terms back, and what does it actually mean to be a constitutional conservative Republican? Because again, there's all kind of different views on who these folks are. But you're right, in Texas, for the most part, red state, no issues. Well, that's not the case, because they've got the same thing. Look at how they responded to COVID. Look at their taxes. Look how the situation they had with their attorney general. They're being overtaken in their state house as well right now by liberal, by rhinos, folks that are saying they're Republicans. But you look at how they're voting. It's not an opinion. It's not name calling. It's just look at how they vote. Look at the national and the state platform. They're consistently voting against it. Therefore, how can they be called a Republican? And so my eyes weren't opened either until COVID and the hijacking of the Trump election, in terms of what does that actually mean? And things are good, right? Things are comfortable. Things are good, but they're not. And so if all politics is local, I hate the cliche, but it really is. And if you start to get involved local, you see, I know corruption is a strong term, but you see how dirty, maybe dirty is the better word, how dirty politics can be, and it shouldn't be. We need to work together. We've got a common cause, or at least we say we do. And so we're going to be able to talk about what is that common cause, and why is there so much division, and why can't we work together?
That is so true. They say like politics is like sausage. You love it, but you don't want to see how it's made. Right. And I never quite understood that until I stepped forward. I was very reticent because of the political environment that I came from, which was you cannot have any alternative views. You cannot have a liberty-minded framework. And so to me, what drew me to Tennessee was liberty, and what I perceived as liberty. And in comparison to other places, they always say, if you don't appreciate America, go to another country and live there for a few weeks, and you'll come home and you'll be absolutely appreciative of everything that we have. And so for me, coming to Tennessee did represent a freedom that I could send my child to school without a mask eventually. There was some back and forth, but he did get to go to school. He got to go in school in person, where many other states were not. So that to me was primary, is the sense of liberty. What about you, Leigh Ann? What's your view of liberty and republicanism?
Being a Republican, we as a nation are a constitutional republic. And I believe there's a word that I learned. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, and I'm almost embarrassed to admit that there's words I still don't know the definitions of. But there's a word I learned really over the last 3 or 4 years. It's the word conflate. And our liberal counterparts have become masters at conflating words, and democracy is one of those words. They say we're a democracy, the Republicans are against democracy, and that couldn't be any further from the truth. We're not a democracy, we're a constitutional republic, and we have a constitution that we abide by. We have a constitution over the state of Tennessee that we abide by, and there's laws that we have to follow, and if you don't like the way the law reads, change it. And that's where representation in Congress and the House and the Senate and all that works, and how it's supposed to be just a state level version of what we have on a federal level. And so being a Republican, for me, is a person who abides by the Constitution of the United States of America, by the Constitution of the state that you live in, and you are able to live free and go about your life, but within the confines of the constitutional laws that have been created by the elected leaders that are elected by the people. They work for us. Supposedly, they work for us, and they are supposed to listen to us. And so, if your representatives aren't listening to you and aren't voting the way the majority of their constituents want them to vote, then they're really not representing the people, and they're taking away our freedoms. And really kind of slinging mud on the constitutionality of the way we're built, the constitutional republic that we're even built on.
I mean, Elliott, in terms of constitution, and where do you come down and how that frames your viewpoint of being a Republican, the Constitution?
Yeah, I mean, it's even as I reflect back to the story I was sharing about George W. Bush. Of course, at the time, I thought, greatest person ever, because many years ago, and that's what was my view of being conservative and being a Republican. And now I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I would never in a million years vote for him again because of how we've grown and learned. I mean, the limited, we want limited government, and that can mean so much, but it shouldn't be limited government, fiscal conservatism. Why are we in such debt? Why do we continue to borrow? And everyone's pet projects. And it's just, I'm so simple-minded, and I work that way at work as well. It's going back to the basics. Why can't we just health and safety, right? I mean, oversimplify it, but why are we trying to do all these other things and provide all these other things when that should be private industry? Get out of our way and let the people do their thing. And you're right. We're never going to agree. We're humans. We're all sinners. We're never going to agree on 100% of anything. But when we hold our elected officials accountable, if they say they are Republican, what is a Republican platform? And are they voting that way at least, 85% of the issues that are on that platform? Again, no one's going to be perfect. No one's going to be 100%. But we've got to unify around exactly what you said. We've got to figure out what are the top 5 pillars, if we want to say that, around, limited government, Second Amendment, again, being physically conservative. There's got to be some pillars that we all agree on and then follow those. That's my view of being and of course, the Constitution has to be number one. Follow the Constitution. Brilliant. Our forefathers were so smart and brilliant and ahead of their time. And then we go try to change the Constitution or say, well, they didn't interpret it right. No, they actually did. We're the ones that need to look at it and follow it. And I think education, with Elon buying, that was so great for us in getting the word out about the truth and stop letting the media and the liberal define what our terms mean. I love what you said, Leigh Ann. We've got to take back what these terms mean. It's out of control.
Correct. I mean, I totally agree with that. And this is the reason for the podcast, that we're sort of cutting out a middleman of the media, which so many people have done. We're saying like, okay, we can give the message to everybody that we need to speak to. And so hence our podcast, speaking about fiscal conservatism, that is going to lead us to our next podcast now that we've all been introduced. And that is the issue of the Williamson County taxes. That has been hot on all the socials. So I'm going to thank you both, and we are going to pick it up on our next episode. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Any last words that you'd like to say to our audience?
We're glad to be doing this. This is a service to you. And if there are things that you want to hear about, feel free to jump on our website, give us an email, and I'm sure we'll provide our email information in the show notes. And so email us if you have questions or a topic you want us to discuss, to learn more about. We are here for you. We're volunteers and we don't get paid. So, let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll get back with you.
I would just say the same thing. Get involved. Come to our events. Go to our website. Give us feedback. We know we're not going to agree on everything, but we need to start somewhere. We've got to start, and we've got to engage and become a community.
Well said, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.